I woke up in the middle of the night, unable to sleep from morning sickness. Just as I was about to get out of bed to rush to the bathroom, I heard something that made me freeze completely. It was coming from downstairs, a sound that didn't belong in our house at 3 in the morning. Laughter. Feminine laughter that definitely wasn't mine, mixed with my husband's deep chuckle that I'd grown to love over our 6 years together. My hand instinctively went to my barely showing belly, protective of the 12-week-old life growing inside me. The nausea that had woken me suddenly felt like nothing compared to the sick feeling spreading through my chest. Marcus was supposed to be working late again. He texted me around 11 saying he was wrapping up a presentation and would be home soon, not to wait up. I'd fallen asleep around midnight after another bout of vomiting, exhausted and alone. But he was home, and he wasn't alone. I slipped out of bed as quietly as possible, my heart hammering so hard I was sure they could hear it downstairs. Our bedroom was directly above the living room, and as I crept toward the door, I could make out more sounds. The clink of glasses, more laughter, and then her voice clearer now. "You said she'd be asleep for hours. Are you sure she won't come down?" "She's been sleeping like the dead lately. The pregnancy has her completely knocked out by 9 every night." Marcus's voice held a casual dismissiveness that made my blood run cold. "We have time." I couldn't breathe, my Marcus. My husband who had cried tears of joy when I showed him the positive pregnancy test 2 months ago, who had held my hair back during my first morning sickness episode and sworn he'd be there for every single one, who had kissed my stomach every night before bed and whispered to our unborn child about how loved they would be. That Marcus was downstairs with another woman, talking about me like I was an inconvenience to work around. I should have stormed down there, confronted them both, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the pregnancy hormones, or maybe it was pure instinct, but I found myself moving to the top of the stairs instead, staying hidden in the shadows where I could see through the gaps in the railing. What I saw made my stomach drop. Marcus was on our couch, the one we'd picked out together last year, the one where we'd cuddled and watched movies and planned our future. And she was there with him, not just sitting next to him, but draped across him, her perfectly manicured hand resting on his chest, her long dark hair spilling over his shoulder. But it was who she was that made me grab the railing for support. Rebecca, my best friend since college, the woman who had been my maid of honor, who had squealed with joy when I told her I was pregnant, who had been over just last week, helping me look at nursery designs and baby names. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound, my other hand still clutching my stomach as if I could protect my baby from this ugliness. "I can't keep doing this," Rebecca was saying, her voice carrying up to me, sneaking around pretending to be her friend. "It's killing me, Mark." Mark, she called him Mark. Only his mother called him that, and he hated it, or at least I thought he did. "I know, baby, I know." His hand was stroking her hair the same way he used to stroke mine, "but we have to be patient. Once the baby is born, we can start the divorce proceedings. If I leave her now while she's pregnant, I'll look like the villain. Her family would destroy me and I'd lose everything in the divorce. You know, her father's a lawyer. We have to be smart about this." The words were coming from far away, filtered through a rushing sound in my ears. Divorce. They were planning for him to divorce me after the baby was born. This wasn't a one-time mistake or a moment of weakness. This was calculated, planned. "I just hate seeing you with her," Rebecca whined. "Knowing you have to touch her, sleep next to her, it makes me sick." "It makes me sick too," Marcus said, and I watched him kiss her forehead. "But think about it. Once we make it through this, we can be together openly. And honestly, the baby isn't the worst thing. It'll make me look good, being a devoted dad. Shared custody means I won't even have to deal with it full time. And with her family's money, the child support she'll pay me will be substantial." My family's money, of course, my trust fund, the one I'd shared freely with him, never imagining he'd marry me for it. We'd signed a prenup at my father's insistence, but I'd made sure Marcus would be taken care of if anything happened. I'd trusted him, loved him. What an idiot I'd been. "When did you know you loved me?" Rebecca asked, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Remember that weekend last year, when she went to her mother's for that spa thing? You came over to help me fix the sink, and we ended up talking all night." "I thought you were just being friendly," Rebecca said. "I was trying to be, but then you laughed at that stupid joke I made, and I just saw you differently. You're everything she's not. Fun, spontaneous, understanding. She's become so boring, so focused on this baby and her career. You actually see me." I had gone to my mother's for her birthday. It was a spa weekend she'd planned for months, and I'd almost canceled because Marcus had mentioned the sink was broken. He'd insisted I go, said he'd handle it, that he'd ask Rebecca to help since she was handy with tools. I thought it was sweet that my husband and best friend got along so well. That weekend was 14 months ago. They'd been doing this for over a year. I'd suspected nothing, not when Rebecca started coming over more often, not when Marcus's work hours got longer, not when they'd share inside jokes I didn't understand. I'd just been happy that the two people I loved most got along. "How much longer do we have to wait?" Rebecca asked. "The baby's due in June. We'll wait until August, maybe September. Give it enough time that it doesn't look suspicious. I'll start sleeping in the guest room, say the baby's crying is affecting my work, create some distance. Then I'll tell her I'm not happy, that we got married too young, that we want different things. It'll be a clean break. And then we can finally be together," Rebecca sighed. "God, I can't wait to not have to pretend to care about baby booties and nursery colors." They both laughed, and something inside me shattered completely. I don't know how long I stood there, watching them touch each other, kiss each other, plan their future on the ruins of mine. Long enough that my legs started to shake, long enough that the nausea came back with a vengeance. I made it back to the bathroom just in time, retching quietly into the toilet, my whole body shaking. When I was done, I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes red, my hair a mess. I looked exactly like what I was, a pregnant woman who just had her world destroyed. But as I stared at my reflection, something shifted. The devastation began to crystallize into something else, something harder, colder. They wanted to play games. They wanted to use me, my baby, my family's money. They wanted to make me the fool. Fine, but I'd be damned if I'd make it easy for them. I washed my face, brushed my teeth, and went back to bed. I heard Marcus come upstairs about 20 minutes later, heard him in the bathroom, smelled the mouthwash he used to cover any trace of her. He slipped into bed beside me, and I kept my breathing steady and even, pretending to be the deeply sleeping pregnant wife he thought I was. When he wrapped his arm around me, pulling me close, whispering, "Love you," against my neck, I didn't flinch. I didn't pull away. I let him hold me, this man who was planning to throw me away like garbage once I'd served my purpose. And I started planning. The next morning, I woke up and acted completely normal. I made breakfast while Marcus showered, smiled at him over coffee, kissed him goodbye when he left for work. I waited until his car disappeared down the street before I finally let myself feel it all again. But only for a moment. I couldn't afford to fall apart. I had too much to do. My first call was to my father, not to tell him everything, not yet. I needed to be strategic about this. But I did ask him a hypothetical question about prenups and what would happen if one party was found to be unfaithful during the marriage. "Well, honey, remember that clause I insisted on, the infidelity clause. If either party is unfaithful, they forfeit their rights to any shared assets and the wronged party gets sole control of all marital property. Why are you asking? Is everything okay with Marcus?" I'd been furious about that clause when we'd signed the prenup. I thought it showed a lack of trust in Marcus. Now I could have kissed my father's paranoid lawyer face. "Everything's fine, Dad, just curious. Someone at work was talking about their divorce." Well, the wronged party would need proof, of course, but with proof, it's pretty ironclad. The cheater walks away with nothing but their personal belongings and whatever they came into the marriage with. Marcus had come into our marriage with student loan debt and a used Honda. Everything we had now, the house, the cars, the savings, it had all come from my trust fund and our combined incomes during the marriage. "Thanks, Dad, love you." "Love you too, sweetheart. How's my grandchild?" "Growing," I said, my hand on my belly. "The doctor says everything looks perfect." After I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time thinking. I needed proof, solid, undeniable proof. Pictures, texts, something concrete that would hold up legally. I grabbed my laptop and started researching. Private investigators, hidden cameras, phone monitoring software. I felt dirty doing it, but they'd forced my hand. They'd made me into someone who had to spy on her own husband. By noon, I had a plan. I called a private investigator that came highly recommended for divorce cases. I met him that afternoon at a coffee shop across town, somewhere I'd never been with Marcus or Rebecca. His name was David Chen, and he was nothing like I expected. Professional, kind, and completely non-judgmental as I laid out what I'd overheard the night before. "I need evidence," I told him. "Pictures, recordings, whatever will hold up in court. I have a prenup with an infidelity clause." "How far along are you?" he asked, glancing at my still small bump. 12 weeks. And he's planning to wait until after the baby's born to file for divorce. According to what I heard, yes, He thinks it'll look better, and he's hoping for child support from me. David shook his head. I've seen a lot of terrible people in this job, Mrs. Peterson. This is up there, but don't worry, we'll get you what you need. I'll need access to your house to install some cameras in common areas. Nothing in bedrooms or bathrooms, that's illegal. But living room, kitchen, anywhere you'd have a reasonable expectation of them being together. Whatever you need to do. I'll also follow them when they're out together, document everything. It usually takes a few weeks to build a solid case. I have time, I said bitterly. Apparently, I have until September. Over the next few weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize. I smiled and played the doting wife. I went to baby appointments with Marcus, let him hold my hand during ultrasounds, posted happy couple photos on social media. I had lunch with Rebecca, listened to her give me advice about my marriage, watched her coo over my growing belly while knowing she was sleeping with my husband behind my back. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. But David was earning his fee. Within 2 weeks, he had photos of Marcus and Rebecca meeting at a hotel downtown, entering together, leaving hours later. He had recordings from the cameras in my house of them together while I was supposedly at work, but really sitting in my car down the street, watching the time until I could come home and interrupt nothing because David had warned me. The worst was the text messages. David had installed monitoring software on Marcus's phone one night while he was sleeping. I drugged his nighttime tea with one of my sleeping pills, hating myself but doing it anyway. The messages between him and Rebecca were graphic, detailed. They talked about their future together, about how much better their life would be without her. They mocked me, my pregnancy weight, my mood swings, the way I'd cry at commercials. Rebecca sent him photos of herself. Marcus sent back messages about how much prettier she was than his whale of a wife. I was 5 months pregnant when I read that. I'd been so proud that morning because I'd felt the baby kick for the first time. I'd called Marcus immediately, crying happy tears, and he'd said all the right things. Told me he loved me, loved our baby, couldn't wait to meet them. And then I read his text to Rebecca from 5 minutes later. She felt the parasite kick, had to pretend to be excited. Can't wait until this is over. He called our baby a parasite. That was when any lingering doubt, any tiny hope that maybe I'd misunderstood, maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought, all of it died completely. I sat in my car in the parking lot of the grocery store, reading those texts, and I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, but it was buried now under layers of cold, calculated rage. They wanted to destroy me. They wanted to use my child as a pawn in their sick game. I'd show them destruction. I called David. How much do we have? More than enough for your prenup clause. Hotel records, photos, text messages, recordings. He's done, Mrs. Peterson. Legally, he doesn't have a leg to stand on. Good, but I don't want to use it yet. There was a pause, ma'am. He wants to wait until after the baby is born to leave me, right? To make himself look better. I want to beat him at his own game. I want to wait too. I don't understand. I want him to think he's won. I want them both to think they've gotten away with it. And then, when they least expect it, when they think they're safe, I want to take everything from them. Mrs. Peterson, I understand you're angry, and you have every right to be, but carrying this kind of secret through the rest of your pregnancy, it could be harmful to you and the baby. I'm not going to do anything that hurts my baby, I said firmly, but I am going to make sure that when I finally expose them, it counts. Keep gathering evidence. I want everything. Every meeting, every text, every lie. Document all of it. It's your money, David said. I'll do whatever you want. I went home that night and made Marcus's favorite dinner. I wore the maternity dress he'd complimented me on. I smiled and laughed at his jokes and didn't say a word when he said he had to work late the next Friday. Because I knew that next Friday, he'd be at the Hilton downtown, room 347, with Rebecca, just like he had been every other Friday for the past 3 months. And I was documenting every single second of it. My pregnancy progressed. I grew larger and the baby grew stronger. I'd find myself talking to them sometimes when I was alone in the house, promising them that everything would be okay, that mommy was going to make sure they were safe and protected, and that the people who wanted to hurt us would pay for what they'd done. I started going to therapy. I told the therapist I was having anxiety about becoming a mother, which wasn't entirely a lie. I needed someone to talk to who wasn't involved in the situation, someone who could help me process what I was going through without falling apart. Dr. Sarah became my lifeline. I couldn't tell her everything, not yet, but I told her enough, that I was dealing with betrayal, that I was planning to leave my husband after the baby was born, that I needed to stay strong until then. She helped me develop coping mechanisms, meditation, journaling, ways to compartmentalize my feelings so I could function day to day. I needed them because pretending everything was fine while watching my husband and best friend carry on their affair was slowly killing me inside. The baby shower was the worst. Rebecca insisted on throwing it, of course. She wanted to be the best friend, the devoted godmother to be. My mother and sisters came, along with friends from work, neighbors, extended family. Marcus was there, playing the proud father, his hand constantly on my belly, kissing my cheek, telling everyone how lucky he was. And Rebecca was the perfect hostess, organizing games and making sure everyone had enough food and capturing every moment on camera. She'd made a slideshow of photos of Marcus and me through the years, with sappy music and titles about true love and forever. I smiled through it all, opened presents, ate cake, thanked everyone for coming. And then I excused myself to use the bathroom, locked the door, and cried silently for 10 minutes, my hand over my mouth to muffle any sound. When I came back out, Rebecca was waiting in the hallway. "Are you okay?" she asked, all false concern. "You looked a little pale." "Just tired," I said, giving her what I hoped was a convincing smile. "The baby's been active today." "Well, you should rest. Let me clean up here. You go sit down." "Thanks, Becca. I don't know what I'd do without you." "That's what best friends are for," she said, hugging me. Over her shoulder, I could see Marcus watching us, a satisfied smile on his face. They thought they were so clever, so careful. They had no idea that David had been at the shower too, posing as the caterer's assistant, documenting everything, getting footage of them exchanging glances, of the way Rebecca's hand lingered on Marcus's arm just a touch too long, of how they disappeared into the kitchen together for 5 minutes and come back looking flushed. I had it all. June came, and with it, my due date. I went into labor on a Wednesday afternoon, 3 days before I was due. Marcus rushed me to the hospital, holding my hand, telling me to breathe, being everything a husband should be. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him I knew everything, to demand to know how he could touch me, could pretend to care when I knew the truth. But I didn't. I focused on breathing, on getting through each contraction, on meeting my baby. Our daughter was born at 11:47 p.m., weighing 7 pounds 3 ounces. She was perfect, tiny and pink and screaming, with a tuft of dark hair and eyes that would probably turn the same hazel as mine. Marcus cried when the nurse placed her in his arms, real tears streaming down his face. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "She's absolutely perfect." For a moment, just a moment, I wondered if I'd been wrong, if maybe this would change things, if becoming a father would make him realize what he was throwing away. But then I saw him check his phone while I was being stitched up, saw him smile at a message, and I knew nothing had changed. Later, when I was settled in my room, Marcus asleep in the chair beside my bed and the baby in her bassinet, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from David. I'd given him Marcus's updated phone logs. The message Marcus had smiled at during the birth of our daughter was from Rebecca. "Congratulations, Daddy. One step closer to being with me forever." His response, sent while I was holding our newborn child, "Can't wait. This is almost over." I looked at my sleeping daughter, this innocent baby who had no idea what her father was planning, and I made a promise to her, right then and there. I would protect her, I would give her the best life possible, and I would make damn sure that Marcus Peterson regretted every single decision that had led him to this point. We named her Emma Rose. Marcus said he loved it, though I later found texts to Rebecca complaining that I'd vetoed all of his name suggestions. That was a lie. He'd barely participated in the naming discussion. The first few weeks home were exhausting in ways I couldn't have imagined. Emma was colicky, crying for hours every night. I was recovering from childbirth, hormonal and emotional, and running on no sleep. And Marcus started sleeping in the guest room. "I'm sorry, babe," he said, with what seemed like genuine regret, "but I have that huge presentation at work next week, and I need to be sharp. You understand, right? Once things calm down, I'll be back in here with you." It was exactly what he'd told Rebecca he would do: create distance, make it seem natural. "Of course," I said, rocking a screaming Emma. "You need your sleep." He kissed my forehead and disappeared into the guest room, closing the door on the sound of his daughter's cries. I found out later from David's monitoring that he'd immediately called Rebecca and they'd talked for 2 hours. She'd come over the next day while I was supposedly at a doctor's appointment, and they'd had sex in the guest room bed. In our house, with his newborn daughter sleeping upstairs. I was past the point of being hurt anymore. I was numb to it, but I documented it, added it to the ever-growing file of evidence. August came, and with it, Marcus's changed behavior became more obvious. He was distant, irritable. He'd snap at me over small things. He started working late again, sometimes not coming home until after Emma and I were both asleep. I played my part, the confused wife who didn't understand why her husband was pulling away. I'd ask him if everything was okay, if I'd done something wrong. He'd sigh and say he was just stressed about work, that new fatherhood was harder than he expected. Maybe we should go to counseling, I suggested one night in late August. He looked panicked for just a second before smoothing it over. I don't think we need that. We're fine. I'm just adjusting. Are you sure? Because I feel like you're not happy. I'm happy, he lied. I'm just tired. I knew what was coming. David had intercepted messages between Marcus and Rebecca. They were planning for him to ask for a divorce in September, right after Labor Day weekend. They discussed exactly what he'd say, how he'd frame it. They'd even looked at apartments together where he could move to before eventually moving in with her. So I beat him to it. On the Tuesday after Labor Day, I sat Marcus down after Emma was asleep. We need to talk, I said. He looked wary. About what? About us, about our marriage. I took a deep breath, channeling every acting class I'd ever taken in high school. Marcus, I think we should separate. The look on his face was priceless. Complete shock, followed quickly by confusion, and then something that looked almost like relief. What? Why? Because you're clearly not happy, and I can't keep living like this, walking on eggshells, wondering what I did wrong. I think we got married too young. I think we want different things now, and I think it's better for Emma if we're honest about that instead of staying together and being miserable. I was using his own planned words, almost verbatim. Thanks to Rebecca's texts, I knew exactly what he'd been going to say. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, I said softly. I'm not saying we have to divorce tomorrow, but maybe some space would be good. You could stay with a friend for a while, and we could figure out what we really want. I could see him trying not to smile, trying to look appropriately sad and conflicted. If that's what you think is best, he said slowly. I mean, I don't want to give up on us, but if you need space. I think I do, I said. I think we both do. I could stay with Jake, he offered, too quickly, too eagerly. Jake was his college roommate who traveled for work constantly and was barely ever home, the perfect cover for staying with Rebecca instead. Okay, I said, maybe starting this weekend. This weekend, now he really did look excited. I mean, if you're sure. I'm sure. That Friday, I helped him pack a bag. I hugged him goodbye. I even cried a little, which wasn't hard because I was genuinely mourning what I'd thought we had. I love you, he said, kissing my forehead. We'll figure this out. I love you too, I lied. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I called David. He's gone. You ready to do this? More than ready. Okay, I'll have everything compiled and sent to your lawyer by Monday morning. In the meantime, I've got someone watching his car. Want to bet he goes straight to Rebecca's? That's not a bet, that's a guarantee. Sure enough, David sent me photos within the hour. Marcus's car parked in Rebecca's driveway, the two of them kissing on her front porch, him carrying his bag inside. Perfect. That weekend, I didn't sit at home crying like Marcus probably expected. I went to my parents' house with Emma. I told them everything. My father's face went through about 15 different emotions, landing on a cold fury I'd rarely seen. I'll destroy him, he said quietly. No, Dad, I'll destroy him. I just need you to back me up. I showed them everything David had compiled. Photos, texts, recordings, hotel receipts. A complete timeline of the affair from that first weekend when I'd been at Mom's spa trip to the present day. My mother cried, not delicate tears, but huge, gasping sobs. How could they? How could she? I treated Rebecca like another daughter. I know, Moms. And during your pregnancy, while you were carrying his child, what kind of monster? A monster who's about to get exactly what he deserves, my father said grimly. What do you need from me? I need you to call in some favors. My father wasn't just a lawyer. He was a senior partner at one of the most prestigious firms in the state. He had connections everywhere. By Monday morning, I had representation that made Marcus's company's legal team look like amateurs. I had a divorce lawyer who'd never lost a case involving a prenup, and I had a plan. The papers were served to Marcus at work on Tuesday, in front of his boss and half the office, according to the process server I'd specifically hired for his discretion and professionalism. Marcus called me immediately, furious. "What the hell, Claire? Divorce papers. I thought we were just taking some space." "We were," I said calmly, "and I used that space to think clearly for the first time in months. I want a divorce, Marcus." "You can't just, we need to talk about this." "We will, through our lawyers. Mine will be in touch." "Claire, please." I hung up. He tried calling back 17 times. I didn't answer. Finally, he texted, "At least let me see Emma." I responded, "Of course. Supervised visitation can be arranged through the lawyers." "Supervised, she's my daughter. And I'm sure the court will grant you appropriate custody once everything is settled." I blocked his number after that. Rebecca called next. I'd been waiting for it. "Claire, oh my God, I just heard. Are you okay? What happened?" Her fake concern made my skin crawl. "I'm fine, Becca. Better than fine, actually." "But Marcus said you served him divorce papers at work. That's so unlike you. Can we meet, talk about this?" "I don't think so." "What? Why? Claire, I'm your best friend. Let me help you through this." "My best friend," I repeated slowly. "Right. The thing is, Becca, I don't think we should see each other anymore." "What? Why?" "Because I know." Silence, long, heavy silence. "Know what?" Her voice had changed. The fake sweetness was gone. "Everything, the affair, all of it. For over a year, Rebecca. You looked me in the eye, you threw me a baby shower, you held my daughter, all while sleeping with my husband." "I don't, Claire, that's insane. Who told you that?" "Does it matter? I have proof. Photos, texts, recordings, all of it." "You've been spying on us." Now she sounded outraged, as if she had any right to be. "On my husband and the woman he was cheating with, yes, and it's all going to my lawyer. You might want to get one too, actually. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to sue you for alienation of affection. Apparently, it's still a thing in our state." "You betch." There it was, the real Rebecca. "Probably," I agreed, "but at least I'm not a backstabbing, lying, cheating bitch. There's a difference." I hung up on her too. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings. Marcus tried everything. He claimed I'd entrapped him, that I'd pushed him away, that postpartum depression had made me paranoid and delusional. But my lawyer buried him under the mountain of evidence. Every hotel visit, every text message, the recordings from my own home of him planning the divorce, his own words about waiting until after Emma was born so he'd look better and get more money. The prenup was clear. Infidelity meant he got nothing. He tried to argue it wasn't valid, that he'd been coerced into signing it. My father's team of lawyers laughed that argument out of court. Marcus had been represented by his own lawyer when he signed it. It was ironclad. The house bought with my trust fund money was mine. The cars, same thing, were mine. Our savings, our investments, all of it had come from my money or been commingled with it during the marriage. Marcus was entitled to exactly what he'd brought into the marriage. His paid-off student loans, which I'd paid off with my money, but couldn't be reclaimed, and his now 10-year-old Honda. The custody battle was worse. He tried to argue for 50-50 custody, claimed he was a devoted father who'd been driven away by an unstable wife. But I had evidence of him calling Emma a parasite, of him sleeping through her cries, of him having his affair partner in our home while our infant daughter slept upstairs. The judge was not impressed. Marcus got supervised visitation every other weekend to be reevaluated in 6 months. He'd have to take parenting classes, and he'd be paying child support, though not nearly as much as he'd hoped to get from me. The look on his face when the judgment came down was something I'd treasure forever. Complete devastation, the realization that his plan had not only failed but backfired spectacularly. He'd thought he was so smart, thought he'd wait me out, play the long game, and come out on top. Instead, he lost everything. But I wasn't done. Remember how I mentioned that Rebecca might want to get a lawyer? I meant it. I did sue her for alienation of affection. It's an old-fashioned law, rarely used, but still valid in our state. Basically, it allows a spouse to sue a third party for interfering in their marriage. Rebecca tried to claim she'd been manipulated by Marcus, that she'd thought he was going to leave me anyway, that she was a victim too. But those text messages said otherwise, the ones where she'd encouraged him to stay with me for my money, where she'd helped him plan the timeline of the divorce, where she'd mocked me and my pregnancy. The jury awarded me $150,000 in damages. Rebecca didn't have that kind of money. She made decent money as a pharmaceutical sales rep, but not enough to pay that judgment. She'd have to liquidate her savings, sell her car, maybe even her condo. I didn't care. I'd give every penny to charity if I had to. It wasn't about the money. It was about making sure she faced consequences for what she'd done. The social consequences were almost worse for both of them. I didn't have to say a word. The court documents were public record. People from our circle found them, read them, drew their own conclusions. Marcus became a pariah at his company. The affair might have been forgivable, but the calculated nature of it, the planning, the way he'd talked about his infant daughter, that didn't sit well with people. He ended up leaving the company voluntarily before they could fire him. Rebecca lost friends too, mutual friends who were horrified by what she'd done. Her reputation in our social circle was destroyed. They had each other at least. Last I heard, they'd moved in together in a cheap apartment across town. Marcus was working at a different company for less money, and Rebecca was trying to rebuild her career after her company quietly let her go following the publicity from the lawsuit. I should feel bad about it, maybe, about ruining two lives so completely. But I don't. They made their choices. They decided to lie, to cheat, to use me and plan to discard me. They called my baby a parasite. They mocked me while I was suffering through morning sickness and labor and postpartum recovery. All I did was make sure they faced the consequences of their own actions. It's been a year now since the divorce was finalized. Emma is almost 2, walking and talking in the absolute light of my life. She sees Marcus every other weekend, and I'm civil about it because she deserves a relationship with her father, even if he's a terrible person. I've started dating again, though I'm taking it slow. Trust doesn't come easy anymore, but my therapist says that's normal, and I'm working on it. My life isn't what I thought it would be. I'm a single mother instead of part of the happy family I'd envisioned, but in a lot of ways, it's better. I'm not living a lie. I'm not being betrayed every day by the people I trusted most. I'm free. And Marcus and Rebecca, they have exactly what they wanted, each other. No interference from me, no sneaking around, no waiting. Of course, they also have all the consequences they didn't anticipate, the destroyed reputations, the financial ruin, the knowledge that everyone they know sees them for exactly what they are. I heard through the grapevine that they're not even happy together. Turns out, when a relationship is built on betrayal and lies, it doesn't make for a solid foundation. Who knew? Marcus has tried to reach out a few times, beyond the necessary co-parenting communications. Emails about how he's sorry, how he made mistakes, how he wishes he could go back and do things differently. I delete them without responding. Rebecca tried once too, a long letter about how she'd been confused and made bad choices and hoped I could forgive her someday. I burned it. Forgiveness might come eventually. My therapist says holding onto anger isn't healthy, but I'm not there yet, and I don't know if I ever will be. What I do know is this: I'm stronger than I ever thought I could be. I survived betrayal by the two people I trusted most in the world. I protected my daughter and myself. I fought back and I won. That night when I woke up with morning sickness and overheard their conversation was the worst night of my life, but it was also, in a strange way, the best thing that could have happened. Because if I hadn't overheard them, I would have been blindsided when Marcus asked for a divorce. I would have had no evidence, no preparation, no plan. The prenup would have been harder to enforce without concrete proof of the affair. I might have ended up giving him exactly what he wanted, a cushy divorce settlement and half custody of Emma while he rode off into the sunset with Rebecca. Instead, I had months to prepare, to gather evidence, to build my case, to protect myself and my daughter. They taught me that sometimes the people you love most are capable of hurting you worst. That trust has to be earned, not freely given. That you have to protect yourself because no one else will. Hard lessons, but valuable ones. Emma is napping right now, and I'm sitting in our living room, my living room in my house, that Marcus has no claim to, writing this all out. I've been thinking about sharing my story for a while now, partly as therapy, partly as a warning to others. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate, protect yourself. Don't let love make you blind to red flags. And if you do find yourself betrayed, don't just get mad. Get even, get evidence, get a lawyer, get everything they tried to take from you. I'm not saying revenge is always the answer. I'm not saying what I did was entirely healthy or that everyone should follow my example. But I'm saying that sometimes people who hurt you need to face real consequences, and sometimes the best revenge is simply ensuring they don't get away with it. Marcus wanted to use me for my money and discard me. Rebecca wanted my life without the inconvenience of earning it honestly. Instead, they got each other and nothing else. And I got my freedom, my daughter, and the satisfaction of knowing that I didn't let them win. There's more to tell, actually. Things that happened after the divorce that I haven't shared widely because they're still painful in different ways. About 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Marcus's mother called me. Margaret had been devastated when she found out what her son had done. She'd called him a disgrace to the family and hadn't spoken to him since the details of the affair came out. "Claire, dear," she said when I answered the phone, "I know I have no right to ask you this, but would you let me see Emma? She's my granddaughter, and I miss her terribly." I'd always liked Margaret. She was kind and warm, and none of this was her fault. "Of course," I said, "you're welcome to visit anytime. You don't need permission. You're her grandmother." I heard her crying on the other end of the line. Thank you so much. I was so afraid you'd hate all of us." "I don't hate you, Margaret. You didn't do anything wrong." I raised him wrong, clearly. I don't know where I went so wrong that he could do something like this. "You didn't raise him wrong. He made his own choices." Margaret started coming over every Tuesday for lunch. She'd play with Emma, bring her little gifts, and sometimes she and I would just talk. She apologized probably 100 times for Marcus's behavior, even though I kept telling her it wasn't her fault. One Tuesday, about 6 months ago, she brought me something. "I want you to have this," she said, handing me a small velvet box. Inside was a beautiful antique ring, emerald surrounded by small diamonds. "Margaret, I can't." "It was my grandmother's," she interrupted. "It's supposed to go to Marcus's wife. You were his wife, you're the mother of his child, and you're the only daughter-in-law I'll ever acknowledge. I want you to have it, for Emma, if nothing else. You can give it to her when she's older." I accepted it, tears in my eyes, and hugged this woman who'd been kinder to me than her own son had been. Marcus found out about Margaret's visit somehow and had a fit about it. He called his mother and yelled at her for choosing my side. She apparently told him that there were no sides, only right and wrong, and he'd been wrong. He didn't speak to her for 2 months after that. The rift between Marcus and his family has never healed. His father barely acknowledges him. His sister won't let him see his nephews. They all know what he did, and they've all made their positions clear. In trying to build a new life with Rebecca, Marcus lost his old life entirely. As for Rebecca's family, I don't know much about their reaction. Rebecca was never as close to her parents as I was to mine, but I did hear from a mutual acquaintance that her mother was deeply disappointed and that there'd been some kind of confrontation. The social fallout was something neither of them anticipated. They thought they were being so careful, so clever. They thought once they were officially together, people would just accept it and move on. But people talk, and when they found out the full scope of the affair, the planning, the manipulation, the things said about me and Emma, they were disgusted. Rebecca lost her entire friend group. Women she'd known since college wanted nothing to do with her. I know this because some of them reached out to me, apologizing for not seeing what she was really like, offering support. Marcus's friends were more divided. Some guys thought what he did was messed up but still wanted to grab beers with him. But their wives and girlfriends had other ideas, and most of those friendships faded away too. They became isolated together, which I suppose is poetic in a way. They wanted to be together so badly, and now they have no one but each other. I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I got a promotion at work. I'm a financial analyst for a major investment firm, and I'd been killing it at my job even while dealing with all the personal drama. I bought out some additional equity in my house with part of my trust fund, making it entirely mine with no mortgage. I reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with over the years. Without Marcus monopolizing my time and subtly discouraging friendships he couldn't control, I had space for other relationships. I joined a single mother support group, which was incredible. Women who understood the challenges, who didn't judge, who celebrated the victories and commiserated over the struggles. Emma and I built a good life, a peaceful life. We have routines and traditions. Friday nights are pizza and movie night. Saturday mornings are farmers' market trips. Sunday afternoons are for visiting grandma and grandpa. The house that once felt full of ghosts and bad memories has been reclaimed. I redecorated, changing things so it felt like mine and Emma's, not mine and Marcus's. I turned the guest room, the one Marcus had slept in during our separation, the one where he'd brought Rebecca into my home, into a playroom for Emma. Bright colors, toys, bookshelves full of children's books. I took something tainted and made it innocent again. Dating has been interesting. I tried apps for a while but found them exhausting. Too many men who lost interest when they found out I had a young child. Too many who were intimidated by my financial independence. Too many who just wanted something casual when I was looking for something real. I've had a few dates, but nothing serious. I'm not sure I'm ready for serious anyway. There was one guy, Daniel, who I saw for a few months. He was nice, patient with my trust issues, good with Emma. But in the end, I realized I was with him more out of loneliness than genuine connection. I ended it as kindly as I could, and he took it well. "You're not ready," he said, "and that's okay. What happened to you was traumatic. Take your time." He was right, I'm not ready. Maybe someday, but not yet. My therapist and I have been working on that, on trusting again, on not seeing betrayal in every shadow, on understanding that what Marcus and Rebecca did doesn't mean everyone will hurt me. It's slow work, but I'm getting there. Emma has no memory of when Marcus and I were together. As far as she knows, it's always been just us, with visits to Daddy's house every other weekend. She's too young to understand the full story, and I'll never tell her all of it. Maybe when she's much older, if she asks, I'll explain in age-appropriate ways. But I'll never poison her against her father. Whatever he did to me, he's still her dad, and she deserves to form her own relationship with him. Though I'll admit it's hard sometimes. When she comes back from his place and mentions Daddy's friend Rebecca, it takes everything in me to stay neutral. She's too young to understand who Rebecca really is, and I won't be the one to tell her. Marcus has been trying to be a better father, I'll give him that. He actually shows up for his visitation now. He takes parenting classes seriously. He sends child support on time every month. I don't know if it's genuine change or just him trying to look good for the courts when we go back for custody review. I don't really care which it is, as long as Emma is taken care of during her time with him. The supervised visitation was dropped after 6 months when he completed his parenting classes, and the social worker reported no concerns. Now it's standard every other weekend custody, with alternating holidays. I hate it every time I have to hand her over, not because I don't think he'll take care of her. He's proven he can manage that much, but because I don't trust him. I don't trust Rebecca. I don't trust that they won't say something inappropriate or create an environment that's somehow harmful. But my lawyer assures me that unless there's evidence of actual harm or neglect, this is how it is. And Emma always comes back happy, talking about the park or the zoo or whatever outing Marcus planned. She's adjusting well, which is what matters. I ran into them once about 8 months ago, at Target of all places. I was shopping for Emma's birthday party supplies, and I turned a corner and there they were. Marcus and Rebecca, together, looking at furniture or something. We locked eyes, all three of us, the moment stretched out, awkward and tense. Rebecca looked terrible, honestly. She'd lost weight and not in a healthy way. She looked stressed, tired, older than her 32 years. Her hair, which she'd always been meticulous about, was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wasn't wearing makeup. Marcus looked rough too. The cocky confidence that had once been part of his charm was gone. He looked worn down. They looked like what they were, two people living with the consequences of their choices. "Claire," Marcus said finally. "Marcus," I kept my voice neutral. "Rebecca." She flinched at her name, didn't say anything. "How's Emma?" Marcus asked. "Fine, you'll see her this weekend." "Right, yeah," he hesitated. "Look, Claire." "I have to go," I interrupted. "Excuse me." I walked past them, head high, and didn't look back. My hands were shaking when I got to my car, but I'd done it. I'd seen them together and survived it. It hadn't destroyed me. That felt like progress. There have been other small victories. The first time Emma called me Mama clearly, her first day of daycare, which she loved, my promotion at work, paying off the last of the legal bills from the divorce. Each one felt like reclaiming another piece of my life. I've also done some things for me. I took a girls' trip to Mexico with some friends from work. I started taking a pottery class on Thursday nights when Emma is with my parents. I bought myself a new car, a luxury SUV that I'd always wanted but Marcus had said was impractical. I'm building a life that's mine, not defined by what was done to me. But I'd be lying if I said I was completely over it. There are still hard days, days when I wonder what I did wrong, even though I know intellectually that I did nothing wrong, days when I'm angry all over again, days when I'm just sad for what I thought I had and lost. There are moments when Emma does something cute, and my first instinct is still to text Marcus about it, before I remember, before I think better of it. There are nights when I'm lonely, when the house feels too quiet, when I wish I had a partner to share the load with. But those moments are getting fewer and farther between. The story would have been different, I think, if I hadn't woken up that night, if I hadn't heard them planning my downfall, if I'd remained blissfully ignorant until Marcus pulled the trigger on his carefully planned divorce. I would have been devastated, blindsided. I probably would have agreed to whatever he wanted just to make the pain stop. Emma might have ended up in his primary custody if he'd played it right. I might have ended up paying him alimony and child support, funding the life he wanted with Rebecca. I might never have known about the affair. He could have painted me as the bad guy, the wife who let herself go, who was too focused on the baby, who pushed him away. And I might have believed it. Instead, I had time to process, to plan, to protect myself and my daughter, time to gather evidence and build a case, time to prepare for war while they thought they were winning. That night, the worst night of my life, was also the night that saved me. I've thought about that a lot, about fate, coincidence, whatever you want to call it. If Emma hadn't woken me with morning sickness at that exact moment, if Marcus and Rebecca had been quieter, if I'd gone straight to the bathroom instead of hearing them first, my whole life would be different. So I guess in a weird way, I'm grateful for that night, not for the betrayal, not for the pain, but for the knowledge, for the chance to fight back. Someone asked me once, a friend who knew the whole story, if I ever wished I hadn't found out, if ignorance would have been bliss. The answer is no, absolutely not. Yes, knowing was painful. Carrying that secret through the rest of my pregnancy was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Pretending everything was fine while my world was falling apart nearly broke me. But I'd rather know the truth and deal with it than live a lie. I'd rather be a single mother building an authentic life than a married woman living a betrayal. I'd rather be alone than with someone who doesn't truly love me. Emma deserves better than growing up watching her father pretend to love her mother. She deserves better than the example of a marriage built on lies. And I deserve better than Marcus, better than Rebecca, better than people who could look me in the eye and smile while plotting to destroy me. The revenge when it came was sweet. I won't pretend it wasn't. Watching Marcus's face when he realized I knew everything, when he understood that his plan had failed, when he saw everything he'd schemed for slip away, that was satisfying in a deep, primal way. Watching Rebecca's smug superiority crumble when she was served with the lawsuit, also satisfying. But the real victory isn't in their downfall, it's in my survival, my success, the life I've built from the ashes of what they tried to destroy. They wanted me broken, used, discarded. Instead, I'm strong, I'm independent, I'm successful, I'm a good mother, I'm happy or getting there. That's the real revenge, not just beating them but thriving without them. I hope whoever reads this takes something from it. I hope it helps someone who might be going through something similar. I hope it gives someone the courage to investigate their instincts, to protect themselves, to fight back. But mostly, I hope it serves as a reminder that betrayal doesn't have to define you. It's something that happened to you, not something you are. I was betrayed by my husband and my best friend, but I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor. And Emma and I were going to be just fine. Better than fine, actually. We're going to be great. There's an epilogue to this story that happened just last month, actually, something I'm still processing. Marcus showed up at my door on a Tuesday evening, outside of his scheduled visitation. I almost didn't answer, but Emma had left her favorite stuffed bunny at his place, and I thought maybe he was returning it. When I opened the door, he looked terrible, worse than at Target. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "We need to talk," he said. "If this is about custody, talk to my lawyer." It's not, please, Claire, 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I let him in. Emma was at my parents' house for a sleepover, so at least she wouldn't witness whatever this was. What do you want, Marcus? He sat on my couch, the new one I'd bought after throwing out the one where I'd seen him with Rebecca, and put his head in his hands. I made a mistake, he said. I almost laughed. Which one? There were so many. All of them, everything. Rebecca, the affair, the plan, all of it. It was the biggest mistake of my life. Okay, I said slowly, and you're telling me this why? Because I'm miserable, because everything fell apart, because I lost you and I lost Emma and I lost everything that mattered, and for what? For Rebecca, he laughed bitterly. She's not you, Claire. She's nothing like what I thought she was. That's not my problem. I know it's not, but I needed you to know that I know I screwed up, that I'm sorry, that if I could go back and change everything, I would. I stared at him, this man I'd loved so much, who destroyed that love so completely. You don't get to do this, I said quietly. You don't get to show up here and dump your regrets on me like it's my job to absolve you. You made your choices, Marcus. You have to live with them. I know, but I hoped that maybe we could try again, that maybe you could forgive me and we could work on rebuilding. No. The word came out harder than I intended. Marcus flinched. No, I repeated calmer this time. We're not doing that. We're not trying again. We're not rebuilding anything. That ship didn't just sail, Marcus. You burned it down and scattered the ashes. But we have Emma. We have a child together, that's all. You're her father, and I'll respect that for her sake. But you and me, we're done. We were done the moment you decided to betray me. Claire, please. Did Rebecca leave you? I asked suddenly. Is that what this is? Your plan fell apart, so now you want to come back. His silence was answer enough. Get out, I said. Claire, get out of my house, now. He left, I locked the door behind him and stood there for a long moment, shaking. Then I called my therapist's emergency line, because I knew I needed to talk this through with someone before I spiraled. Dr. Sarah talked me down, helped me process. We had an extra session that week to deal with it all. How do you feel about what he said? She asked. Angry, I admitted. He doesn't get to do that. He doesn't get to ruin my life and then come back when his own plan fails and expect me to what? Take him back, fix him. That's valid, what else? Sad, I guess. Sad that the man I married is so pathetic, that he couldn't even make his betrayal worth it. He threw away our marriage for someone who apparently wasn't even what he wanted. And satisfied, is that terrible? I'm satisfied that he's miserable, that he's realizing what he lost, that he can't just fix it. That's not terrible, it's human. I later found out from a mutual acquaintance what had actually happened. Rebecca had indeed left Marcus. Apparently, living with him full-time had shown her a side of him she hadn't seen during the affair. He was controlling, jealous, paranoid that she'd cheat on him the way they'd both cheated on me. The irony was not lost on anyone. She'd moved out about a month before he showed up at my door, leaving him alone in their cheap apartment with nothing but his regrets. A part of me, a small, petty part, was gleeful about this. They destroyed so much to be together, and they couldn't even make it work. But mostly I just felt nothing. They were no longer my problem. Their relationship, their happiness or lack thereof, had nothing to do with me. Marcus tried to contact me a few more times after that. Emails, texts to my work phone since I'd blocked his personal number, even a letter. All saying the same thing. He was sorry, he'd made a mistake. Could we please try again? I ignored all of it. Eventually, he stopped. His relationship with Emma has remained stable, at least. Whatever his faults as a husband, he seems to be genuinely trying to be a good father now. Whether that's because he actually loves her, or because she's all he has left of the life he destroyed, I don't know. I don't really care, as long as she's safe and happy when she's with him. Rebecca I haven't heard from since before the lawsuit settled. I know she moved to a different city, trying to start over somewhere people didn't know her story. I hope she got therapy. I hope she learned something from all this. But again, not my problem. As for me, I'm still building my life, still healing, still learning to trust again. I've started seeing someone new, actually. His name is James, and he's an architect. We met at a coffee shop when Emma knocked over his coffee, and I was mortified and apologizing profusely. He laughed it off, charmed by her instead of annoyed. We've been on a few dates. It's early, very early, and I'm being extremely cautious, but he seems kind, patient. He knows I have baggage and he's not pushing. Emma likes him, which matters. She calls him Mama's friend James and shows him her toys when he comes over. I don't know if it'll go anywhere. I'm not sure I'm capable of the kind of trust a real relationship requires, but I'm trying. That's all I can do, try, keep moving forward, keep building the life I want. The life that Marcus and Rebecca tried to steal from me. I won. That's what I remind myself on the hard days, when I'm tired and lonely and wondering if I'll ever feel truly safe with someone again. I won. I protected myself and my daughter. I made them face consequences. I built a good life from the ruins they left. That night when I woke up with morning sickness and heard them plotting my downfall was the beginning of the worst period of my life. But it was also the beginning of my victory. And I'd go through it all again, every painful moment, to end up where I am now. Free, strong, mine. That's my story, that's my revenge, that's my redemption. And I'm finally at peace with all of it.